Alright, hopefully a quick video response to Nick the Modern Mystic, and I'll be polite just to get this over with, blah blah blah, and hopefully you'll respond. Look, your last video, you were saying, you were desperate almost. First you say capitalism works quite well, and then you emphasize the quite well part. And it just denies the truth of the matter, how much exploitation has made those capitalist wheels turn. And really the last 40 years of gains have all been stripped because of just a complete abandonment of any kind of rules and regulations of decency, because we've taken and moved production to places where we don't have to be decent anymore. And that's all it's been about. It hasn't been some brilliant innovation or some Henry Ford revolution or some kind of other bullshit. It's a completely negative revolution, and huge profits have been gleaned off of that foreign productivity, and none of that benefit has gone to the consumers. They're also exploiting, but none of the profit benefit. And then you turn around and start talking about the bailouts of the banks as if that's some sort of the notion of too big to fail is somehow some kind of liberal idea. That they're the ones contriving that one, and that one, of course, was just paid for by the big campaign contributors to the elections of these stupid, lousy party candidates who get their big money from these big corporations and these big banks, the big all tied together, the investors, and so that's why they end up playing this too big to fail game. But it's almost like you implied that somehow the problem in the economy was created by the bank bailout. That was hardly the problem. And if you left the stock market, back at 7,000, that would have had a long-term implication that would have been pretty catastrophic, because all these people were living on that fake money, that fake wealth. And then all of a sudden they'd be doing all that calling. They'd be doing all that, well, I'm going to have to mess up my whole investment portfolio, and I'm going to have to sell my Fannie Mae stock, and I'm going to have to sell this, and I'm going to have to sell that to live my rich life. And so that it would have been further deterioration in the stock market. If it was left at 7,000, it would have gone down to 3,000, and maybe 2, and maybe 400 eventually. It was a whole unraveling. That was the legitimate unraveling of the prospect that any of this preposterous debt was ever going to be possible to pay any of it off. That was essentially the realization. And it wasn't anything in the masses or in the workers or in the liberals. That wasn't a liberal idea. 80% of people were against it. So it's just silly to sit there and saddle liberal thinkers like they're the ones who invented this too big to fail bullshit. The other point is that you talk like there's some huge efficiency in this capitalism thing, and somehow you do imply that when you say it, one minute you say it works, and the next minute you say, okay, the invisible hand doesn't work, but the invisible hand only doesn't work because somehow government cripples the invisible hand. That's a bullshit argument. Government doesn't cripple the invisible hand. The invisible hand doesn't exist. Big, inefficient, sloppy, shitty companies can exist for a long time because they can destroy anything that tries to compete with them. They don't have to play fair. It doesn't have to be a fair competition. They can kill all the male babies. They can do whatever they want to make sure that nothing can touch them ever and touch their position. Sort of like a Microsoft and now with Google. And then there are all these huge inefficiencies in this way of doing business anyway. This gobbling up of each other, and the destruction of businesses, and this notion that these rich people create jobs. No, they displace one worker and hire another worker, and usually at a less of wage. And that's usually the huge innovation, is they found some way to get out of a past contract with a worker, a good contract, and create a bad contract to replace them with. And so where's your ethics there? Where's the ethics of going from a system that had respect for workers and their wages and going to a system that had no respect for them? Wasn't that almost as draconian as some kind of 99% tax bracket? Wasn't the same thing basically when Reagan said, yeah, let's go We'll teach the workers a lesson. We'll start letting you do your business in Mexico, and we'll let you do your business all over the fucking world. Hire your labor there, and that'll teach these loafers. Fuck that bullshit. I mean, that's just as a changing of the rules of the game, as all of a sudden saying now your IOUs, we're only going to give you 10 cents on the dollar for your lame, stupid, dumb investment money. But we invest. The bottom line is we bailed out the rich. We didn't bail out workers. We didn't bail out welfare. We didn't bail out all this other crap. You played this game the other day too. You fucked with. Well, now I'm getting hostile. But you fucked with the notion that somehow Social Security it was a big lie that Social Security isn't fully funded or wasn't fully funded. It was, and trillions of dollars of that paid in full upfront money was essentially just given to the richest people in the world. It was given to them to invest in the stock market and to keep all the profit for themselves at a complete loss to the payroll taxpayers who paid into the system. It was a complete and disgusting ripoff. And so it's just bullshit. Some of these arguments you make are just crap. So the point I wanted to get to is that now you're maligning full employment, and that just doesn't make any sense. That we know the roots of what the roots of the economy are. So let's say there was the Martians gave us a whole bunch of free stuff every year. So the Martians, every year we got VCRs and iPods and all kinds of good little free electronics and toys and shit from the Martians. Well, our economy wouldn't just stop then, would it? We wouldn't all just sit down and say, oh, no economy left, the Martians are making everything. No, then we would sit there and invest in our own societies, and we'd build hydroelectric plants or do this or do that. We'd find work for ourselves. We'd find jobs to do. There's lots of work to get done, and so then we'd get to the business of doing that work. And that's essentially how this thing is now. You're implying that because that we've somehow moved all labor, all need, all want to China. No. We're exploiting the hell out of them. We should reap the benefits, I guess, if that's what we're all agreed to do, is be slave owners. Then we should more equitably divide the profit of the slavery. But the point is, it has nothing to do with how many people should be working here. People should be working here, and the core concept is that this whole consumption production thing, and the point is that every person should be a producer, and every person will be a consumer. And that we produce, and the other guy consumes what he produces, and this guy produces, and this guy consumes what. And I mean, it's this mutual thing, and that's the real core of an economy. And the problem with our economy is that there's this third party who does no producing, but he just owns the mechanism of transfer between these two. He gets to decide how people produce and consume, and he takes a profit off all transactions. And that motherfucker's the one that's the problem. That's the thing the invisible hand needs to squash the shit out of, because that's the huge unproductivity. And so that's sort of the ideal of government. Is government can just say, well, look, you got a whole bunch of revenue you rich bastards are sitting on, a whole bunch of ownership. Let's cash in some of that ownership, flush it into the economy, put people to work building something that somebody can consume, something worth consuming. And we'll have them produce it. They'll make money producing it. They'll have cash in their pocket to buy other stuff. The other stuff will employ the other guy who will buy their stuff. I mean, that's the way it should goddamn work. That's the ideal. So, of course, some notion of full employment is only rational. You want an economy to find useful work for people. And I'm not just saying pay people to do nothing. And we know that, because of just this political system and the compromises that get built out of it, that we're investing way too much money in this completely unproductive shit. This healthcare crap, this subsidized having your kid crap. Your kids are really expensive. It's not all that. We're not getting our money's worth, let's put it that way. We're investing a hell of a lot of money in these kids, and only a small percentage of them come out to be doctors or engineers or something truly useful. The rest of them come out talking about holons and philosophical bibble babble and how art is beautiful and wonderful, and I'm going to wrap plastic around an island, and so they're going to pay me money to do that shit. So there's a huge pile of unproductive labor Obviously, investing millions of dollars keeping dead people alive is really fucking dumb, really inefficient, really unproductive. So yeah, there's a lot of wasted investment, but the idea of public investment is not a bad idea. The idea that you would borrow the money or print the money, that I concede is bogus. So I don't go with, this Joe's idea that you can just print this shit forever and it's no friggin' problem. Big friggin' problem. As long as you're paying people in cash and you're going to keep printing cash every year, you're just going to keep eroding the value of wages. And you're going to be eroding the value of the tax revenues you're collecting if you're printing money every year. It's just common sense. And he has this idea, he just doesn't appreciate that you can't print the entire money supply. Money's just transaction currency. It isn't the wealth in the economy. All that stock bonds, all this other paper out there is what defines who owns what. Money is almost irrelevant. So anyway.